During the First World War, Britain, France, and Russia, who were named the Allies, formed the Versailles Treaty to end the war. The Versailles Treaty included the Mandate System, which is a form of imperialism and colonialism in year 1919. The Mandate System was made to protect the countries that are colonized and controlled by the Allies. Britain then was responsible for protecting and administering Palestine. On November the 2nd, the official Balfour Declaration was written by Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour and was sent to Britain's most illustrious Jewish citizen, Baron Lionel Walter Rothschild. The Balfour was written and put into action because of its concerns regarding the direction of the First World War, and the British believed that the Zionists had a religious connection with Palestine. The Balfour Declaration is a public statement that announced the support of forming a nation for the Zionists in Palestine when the Ottoman Empire was eradicated by the Germans. The opening words of the declaration represented the first public expression of support for Zionism by a major political power. The term national home had no precedent in international law and was intentionally vague as to whether a Jewish state was contemplated. The intended boundaries of Palestine were not specified, and the British government later confirmed that the words "in Palestine" meant that the Jewish national home was not intended to cover all of Palestine. The second half of the declaration was added to satisfy opponents of the policy, who had claimed that it would otherwise prejudice the position of the local population of Palestine and encourage anti-Semitism worldwide by stamping the Jews as strangers in their native lands. Moreover, the Balfour included that the civil and the religious rights of the Palestinians should be protected. This declaration gave popular support and acceptance for the Zionist nation, and this caused the conflict between the Palestinians and the Jewish. In the broader Arab world, the declaration was seen as a betrayal of the British wartime understandings with the Arabs. The Sharif of Mecca and other Arab leaders considered the declaration a violation of a previous commitment made, so the Sharif of Mecca wanted to initiate the Arab revolt. Following the publication of the declaration, the British dispatched Commander David George Hogarth, who was a British archaeologist that worked in the Arab Bureau, to see the Sharif of Mecca in January 1918, bearing the message that the political and economic freedom of the Palestinian population was not a question. Hogarth reported that Hussein would not accept an independent Jewish state in Palestine, nor was I instructed to warn him that such a state was contemplated by Great Britain. In April 1920, during the British military occupation which preceded the Mandate, the Arabs of Palestine rioted in protest against Jewish settlements. In Jerusalem, the riots took the form of violent attacks on the Jewish population. In Galilee or North Palestine, armed groups attacked Jewish settlers. In August 1929, a dispute at the Western Hall in Jerusalem flared into riots, which spread throughout the country. The Jewish community in Hebron was wiped out. 133 Jews were killed and many hundreds were wounded. The violence developed into revolt against the British and a war against the Jews, which became known as the Great Uprising of 1936 to 1939. The Balfour Declaration opened up the immigration for the Jews. Between 1919 and 1923, 40,000 Jews, mainly from Eastern Europe, arrived in Palestine. Many had been trained in agriculture in the European Zionist movement and established settlements of the type pioneered by the early arrivals, and on land purchased with funds raised by Jewish communities throughout the world. The dominant ideology was socialism. During this period, Jewish settlers initiated a new life of theirs. As they are good in agriculture, the Jews drained the malarial swamps and converted them to agricultural use, and national institutions such as an elected Jewish assembly and the Haganah Voluntary Defense Force were established. Between 1929 and 1939, with the rise of Nazism in Germany, a new wave of some 250,000 immigrants arrived, since Hitler detested the Jews. Of these, about 174,000 arrived between 1933 and 1936, after which the British imposed increasing restrictions on Jewish immigration. Refugee architects introduced the modern style which characterized Tel Aviv as it rose from the stand dunes, and refugee musicians found the Palestinian Philharmonic Orchestra. The port at Haifa and its oil refineries were completed, and new industrial development transformed the economy. The Jewish population in Palestine thus increased from about 85,000 in 1919 to 678,000 by 1946. Hence, the Balfour Declaration brought with it economic, social, and cultural change. Today, there are an estimated 5.3 million Palestinian refugees outside the territories, most of whom reside in countries in the region which refuse to grant them citizenship. 100 years later, the Palestinian belief in their right to return home is no closer to becoming a reality. Since the elections of US President Donald Trump, an emboldened Israel has announced the creation of thousands of new settler homes in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Moreover, on December 6, 2017, President Trump stated, "I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel." This statement made the Arabs and especially the Palestinians furious. And despite a new reconciliation deal between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the coastal enclave's 2 million residents endure a worsening humanitarian situation after a decade of the Israeli blockade. The Balfour Declaration's effects still affect the lives of all Palestinians today. As a result, many Palestinians and other activists have frequently said that the UK should formally apologize for it.